Yes, but I would want to not deviate from the very serious matters raised by my friend and colleague. I'd rather try to add emphasis on some of these points. But first, let me send out sincerest condolences to the family, the Reddock family of New Montrose. Ada Reddock passed away last evening. She had been ailing for some time. I had the opportunity to visit her at her home. And I want, on my own personal behalf, and of course that of the New Democratic Party, to extend sincerest condolences to the family. George Reddock is of late, of blessed memory, has been a distinguished businessman in this society. His children have done well.
And I think he might have been treasurer for NDP at one time too.
I'm sure he was affiliated with the party, and I know Bev has done tremendous work for the party as well, and continues to. Our condolence to the entire family. I know she was ailing for some time, but that is not something that is easy to take. It's always hard, and as I say to Bev and others, just treasure the memory and give God thanks and praise.
Just God.
In my own constituency also, there are a number of people in their 90s and some approaching 100. There's a gentleman who, Quinton, there in Montrose, the husband of your own Major, Faith, who used to sell these black pudding. Her husband, Quinton, recently turned 100 just before Christmas. He's in Edinburgh there. And we had the privilege of visiting with him on that particular day. There's another lady who soon in this year will turn 100 in my own constituency, but she knows who she is, and I will keep it quiet. She's a little shy, nice lady, wonderful lady. More of that when the time comes. But I just wanted to hail up all of the folks in West Kingstown again. There have been a number of pleasant and not so pleasant things. That is never easy. A number of persons lost loved ones. Guts there in Camden Park lost his dear wife, who had lost her leg some time ago, and she was buried in the Oria region in the time when I wasn't able to attend. And just want to reach out to all of these people, too numerous to mention, who have suffered losses. A well-known constituent of mine from Bodygutter, who was working in Dominica, had a tragic accident just before Christmas and was flown out to, Raymond Edwards was flown out to Trinidad. He's been getting very good care at Southern Medical in Trinidad. The employers in Dominica have gone out of their way to make sure he was transported and attending that facility there in Trinidad. He had lost a leg and he's still in hospital undergoing, because the accident was really tragic. It's very, very sad. But the people for whom he worked have gone out of their way to make sure that the family is comforted and all medical attention is being paid to him. And we are indeed very grateful for this. So to all of these people, we look forward to this year, the decisive year in politics in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I make bold to say that and mark that word. I join you, Major, in challenging supporters of the New Democratic Party. Yes, we are a party that understands the need for criticism. Let us, at this point in time, focus on what is necessary for removing this evil, corrupt, illegitimate regime. Let us focus on the positives. If you have issues of concerns, use this common sense approach. All of us are accessible. You know how to reach us. You have something you want to share, do it directly to us. We are open. We have always been listening. Whether we are in opposition or in government, we believe that a party that is not prepared to listen is not going to improve. But there are things that you can say to us in private, in direct conversation with us, in different forums. But there are certain things that are better left outside. You don't wash certain linens in the open, because you're going to pollute a number of other things. And people who may not be as au fait with what you're saying and how you're saying it might interpret it in a different way and may be inclined not to understand how serious this party is and how we deal with matters. And that is a point that cannot be lost. The other side, by contrast, brokers know the sentient voice. No member, not even an elected member of parliament, can oppose the High King in anything, even though they are aware that it's detrimental to this country. We do not practice that brand of madness. That's not the New Democratic Party. We listen, we are open. But I want to challenge our supporters, let your concerns be channeled come to us through the right channels so that they can have results. You can get what is required. We listen. You need to understand and appreciate that very much. Let's focus. I mean, Major, sometimes it is the most painful thing to listen to the man who calls himself Prime Minister of this country, because his speech is often intended for a particular class of people. He talks down and insults us in the most base way. But after 18 years in charge of this country, when you listen to him, you realize how ignorant he is of so many things. It is frightening. Basic things, I remember when the government came in, they brought this consultant from Trinidad to help them, who lost his life not long after that. Maybe it's his experience with the ULP. Gordon Draper. To help them understand.
Gordon was one of my lecturers,
Major, a very renowned professional. I know the man quite well. But you hear him talk so glibly about what Gordon is telling them, and so as if he has an appreciation. But after 18 years, it is very clear that Gordon wasn't able to convince them at all. Because remember, Major, they went through all that exercise.
I remember.
In depth. And for me, it was so weird how they're making it out to be with such hype. An exercise that we in the CWSA had taken on board very seriously, brought in a consultant, and I played a direct role in the exercise because it became very clear to me that if you're going to do that exercise and don't take it seriously, you're wasting a lot of money. And clearly, that is what occurred in the government. Major, when you're doing this performance evaluation, these kind of things, if those persons who are in the hierarchy of the institution are not personally involved, the whole thing can go awry. It can be a joke. Because you have to be careful in the selection of the people to be representatives in coming forward with their point of view and coming out with something that truly reflects the institution, not just any particular group over the other. And then you have to administer that thing on a continuous basis. But immediately after that government did that exercise, Major, you began to see where they broke away from it and put people outside and different. Remember, a number of people's salaries were frozen for years until they have turned the whole exercise on its head.
Red flag, they call it.
Yes, they were red flag. Part of the process. But what this government has done was to create a whole set of new positions without fitting them into the overall picture. In other words, they've wasted the whole exercise. Once you do that, going forward, any new position ought to be put in within the same context, the same weighting. As Major rightly pointed out in another program, it's not necessary for us to go into the details on this program, but I tell you, it's an in-depth exercise that requires people to sit down carefully and evaluate the importance of every component of work in an institution. Sometimes people do not require at the highest level of academic achievement to fill a position.
That's right.
But their responsibility to the success of the institution is so critical that you have to weigh that heavily in the terms of the remuneration. The conditions of employment may be hazardous. They may be exposed to certain threats.
Crime,
And so you have to recognize that in the compensation package. That's a serious exercise.
Right.
That's a very serious exercise. But this government has destroyed that. And when you hear this so-called prime minister, and I use that term very deliberate, because the majority of people know he was not elected the prime minister of this country. When you hear him talk after 18 years at the helm of a government in this country, you wonder, you begin to see why St. Vincent is in the mess it is, why public servants are at sea, why people who have such capacity are afraid to express their own professional point of view in the job. If you speak to people, you will feel the fear. It's why you have, not just in the public service, and Major, every time this man talks, he forgets, and sometimes I wonder, one of the skills of Ralph Gonsalves, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, is his ability to look at something and regurgitate it. Tremendous capacity. But clearly, he is losing it these days. His memory is not nearly as good as it used to be. And unfortunately, those who know about these things will tell you when you start to lose that, you lose it rapidly. He has lost it. Because a lot of the things he says today are so ridiculously related to what he said 10, 15 years ago. There's no correlation. It makes no sense. So I just want people to understand and appreciate the New Democratic Party in presenting proposals to the people. Don't just say things for the sake of it. Our manifesto is based on real work, based on real experience, based on what is good for this country. It's not about making votes. So when you hear this man telling you, the same man who would tell you, who is on top of every situation, every single situation. I have come on this radio program over the years and told you as manager of the CWSA, every living day you will get a call from Ralph Gonsalves as manager of the Water Authority. And in the years that Sir James was Prime Minister, I got one single call from Sir James. But it's not just about the call. It is the level of detail that he gets involved with every employee, with every contract, with every iota. That is how Ralph Gonsalves functions. And that is why the public service is in a mess. Do you believe, dear listener, that any public servant could get a scholarship or promotion without the sanctioning and approval of Ralph Gonsalves? If you believe that, then you need a brain. That is how that man functions. His hand is in every component of government operations, whether it be in the police, whether it be in the foreign service, whether it be in the public service, whether it be in a statutory body. Ask Tony Myers and so on, who appoints people in Vinlec. You think Randy Batiste has anything to do with it as chairman? You think Gerlin McGill, as chairman of CWSA, has anything to do with employment in CWSA? The Prime Minister has his hands in everything in this country. That is how he functions. And I'm telling you that based on first-hand experience. First-hand. Been there, done that.
Daniel, I don't want to interrupt. I just want to make, because you just lead on to something that the nation doesn't pay attention to. Because you refer to Rennie at
very deliberate. At Vinlec.
And Girling at Water Authority. Borgin at the port.
Yes.
And this country doesn't realize that we run with two cabinets. Every past parliamentarian who resigned from a parliamentary post is the chairman of a major statutory corporation, sometimes owning a salary bigger than what they had.
The one who was
when they were ministers of government,
The one who was overseas, who's about to replace. He's not into our route and everything.
So
every one of them.
If you go through the system, you will see how that operates. And the point Daniel is so right on target. And it's compliment you always make me go one, don't go without the other. Because we use big words for it in management board. We said that the government imposed what they call a monolithic culture. One way, my way, or the highway.
Correct.
Everybody has to do it.
Correct.
Ralph's way.
Correct.
Also, we use the expression, it is isomorphic. I mean, every manager wants to be like Ralph. So they anticipate him and do the thing that you'd want even before you ask them to do it. And that's why I said, as Daniel's saying, the public service has so contaminated the crop that you could have, and we had to thank the public service union. I know you're going to come back to this, Boucher and others, for taking the matter to the court, because not enough people have the conviction and the independence to challenge them and challenge them all the way up to the court. And when the court therefore states that a chairman who is himself a lawyer ignores fairness and equity in promotion, it tells you that the public service is run on the basis of nepotism and favoritism and victimization, in sharp contrast to the meritocracy approach that we have highlighted as the way to go. And it explains why we are stalled and undermanaged in so many cases in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I support 100% of the point that and we have to change that.
Yes.
We have to change that dynamic. We have to change that culture.
Yes. Major, you were talking about the chairman of the Public Service Commission and the case, but his evidence in the case points straight to what we are talking about. Here is a man who is a lawyer, who has been chairman for so long, admitting that he saw no information whatsoever on the candidates. The question you must ask then is, on what basis were they selected? And clearly, as is evidenced by the behavior of the Prime Minister, it can only be politically driven, partisan politically driven. And that is an indictment of the worst kind. And it is manifested to the lopsided nature of our development. If you see a person in a nurse in uniform, you could be 95% sure that the young lady had to proclaim that she's ULP, or the parents had to go and so represent themselves. If you see a person is a policeman, you're almost certain that he is ULP, or he has had to pretend that he's ULP, or the family has to do that. Because no position in the public service can be occupied save and except for the fact that they have a party card. And then the reverse happens. The commissioner of police goes and speaks to a constable, or sergeant speaks to a constable, and he slaps his party card on the table and he says, you talk to that. Talk to that. Don't talk to me, talk to my party card. Because the next thing that will happen is that the supervisor will get a call from the political director to say, hands off. People really need to understand.
That's the same we're developing.
And contrast NDP with this so-called government, When Kenneth John was chairman of the Public Service Commission, Labour used to try to attack him on all fronts. Kenneth John came during and after to point out how straightforwardly they carried out their work within the rules, even when people got appointment whose politics was clearly known. But based on merit, he referred to a case. I remember him speaking about a case in time when people gave him licks for his own sister, the sister the sister, I'm talking about Kenneth John's sister, who was at high school.
Joy Brown.
Yeah. And the procedure that was involved in that, and because it was objective, the people who comprised the Public Service Commission then were there based on their experience and training.
I don't know why they say it would be his niece.
Yeah, it's related. But he had gotten licks on both sides. And he was pointing us to the methodology that was used.
And there were a lot of PS who had either political spouses or whatever. It was clear there was nothing.
Because they took their work seriously. I'll give you an example.
That was the political cleansing dimension you're talking about. I'll give you. Daniel's wife went aside, my wife went aside.
They started this years ago.
So this started a systematic dismantling of the institutions and cultures and systems of state, so that we now reap in the whirlwind.
Let me show you how ULP has been functioning. In my own constituency, there's a lady whose house is threatened by a landslide. And the person who ran against me, Senator, what's her name?
Deborah.
Senator, my good friend, Senator Charles, went and visited the person and promised that she's going to do this project for her. So time passed and she went back and came back again. They had the estimate and everything done. And then she said, well, they tell me you're not supporting the party, so the project can't go through.
There you go.
It is no camouflage, you know. That is her speaking to the lady. They tell me that you don't support the party, so the project failed. That is it.
And we're supposed
That
to
is
put
it.
Parliament and approve funds for that purpose.
You understand? I want
Of
people
parties and
to
development.
understand how St. Vincent has been suffering. She recognized the need. The public servants did the estimates. But it is doomed, dead, can't go forward. Why? She doesn't support the party. That is what passes for governance in this country. You know, it is as blatant as that. She doesn't mask the comments. You know, she tells a lady playing talks why it can't happen. You know, and they have been driven by this master puppeteer to behave in this worthless way, using public funds, you know, not party funds,
we see
public
this even
funds.
in as low as the street cleaning jobs.
Thank you.
That you know.
So, but when I join with Major again in congratulating the Public Service Union, because from day one I have been saying, from the time this government came into being, if you see how they treated Peggy the Freitas and other senior public servants, but for some reason these people, either being aware of the what passes for the judicial system in this country or whatever, there's a fear. There's a fear of pursuing your right in the legal channels. And I tell people, you know, my father and my mother made me in a particular way. One thing nobody tramples on is the rights of this man. Yes. So, and I applaud the Public Service Union for taking that step, and I wish more people would have done it then and even do it today, because there are so many glaring cases where people's constitutional rights are violated.